Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime with Mr. Isaiah. We are still reading Sink or Swim and we're starting chapter 24 today. If you're behind, feel free to go back and get caught up and then join back up with us. Chapter 24. Nobody from the convoy came back for us that day. A guy named Diego got the radio working again, and we were able to send out a distress signal and our location, but then it died for a good little bit. We didn't have any more contact with the world. Just have to try to keep to the shipping lane as best as we can, Chief said. We can navigate by the stars when it's night. Even though I was still feeling numb from the morphine, I could tell he was in a lot of pain when he spoke from the way he couldn't stop clenching his jaw. Saltwater spray must have stung his burnt face, but he made sure to look away from the crew whenever it got too bad. Chief and a couple of guys did an inventory of what we had on the lifeboat, and it wasn't much. The first aid kit, a flare pistol, a couple of hand pumps, buckets for bailing, tarps, binoculars, some fishing lines, but no bait. The men who had weapons had brought them on board, and we had enough water cans to last us a couple of days if we were careful, and enough rations for that long too. Hardtack and biscuits and several cans of peaches, and that was about it. Won't be able to make it long on this, Chief, Diego said. Chief Kerr didn't answer, and for the next several hours everybody sat quietly, hardly talking to one another. I was in kind of a stupor from the drugs, but still couldn't stop thinking about Woody and the other guys we'd lost. It was just like losing my dad all over again, with the hollow feeling inside me, like something big was missing, and I knew I'd never get it back. A couple of times I saw tears streaming down Strobe's cheeks, but he wasn't making any noise. No crying sounds or sniffling or anything like that, just tears. And he wasn't the only one. The waves got rough that night, and salt water sprayed over everybody as we huddled together for warmth. Once the sun had set, the temperature plunged and everybody got chilled, and stayed that way. Several got seasick and threw up over the side. I lay there shivering as I stared up at the sky. A half moon hung there, surrounded by stars, and it was beautiful, but at the same time almost seemed to be mocking us in our misery. Chief Kerr stirred near the bow and pulled himself up so he was standing over us. Maybe he sensed that we were all slipping into a dark place. Maybe he worried that we would give up hope too quickly. "Grab those buckets, some of you men," he said. "Start bailing, 5-minute shifts, then hand your bucket to the next man." Water kept sloshing over the sides of the wave as the waves rocked us harder for a couple of hours, but at least there was something to do. Nobody slept, not even me. And deep into the night, the morphine started to wear off, and the pain set in. My leg throbbed and felt hot to the touch. I must have moaned because Strobe noticed. "Chief Danny needs more meds," he said. Chief Kerr nodded to the crew member who was holding the first aid kit, and he climbed over several guys, squeezed in next to me, and gave me another shot of morphine. I didn't feel anything else the rest of that first night. Just before dawn, the ocean got calm again, and as the sun climbed in the sky, we dried out and warmed up. Guys who had been sitting with their legs stretched out bent their knees and drew their legs in so the men who'd been cramped up for the past few hours could have their turn to stretch out. Another guy and me near the bow were the only ones who'd been lying down. I felt guilty, and so pulled myself up to a seated position. The other guy, Donaldson, couldn't do that because he had died during the night. I didn't realize it until Donaldson's buddy, who'd been holding him the whole time, broke down. "Easy, son," Chief Kerr said, in as kind a voice as I'd ever heard him use. "At least he isn't suffering." I wanted to pull myself away from Donaldson's body and felt myself trembling from the cold and from the terrible realization that I'd been lying next to someone who had been dead for hours. Diego led us all in saying the Lord's Prayer, and then they eased Donaldson's body over the side and let him go. Probably to distract us all from the deep sadness that hit everybody again, Chief ordered the morning's rations, which amounted to a mouthful of hardtack and a couple of swallows of water. Strobe tried to give me his, but I wouldn't let him. "I think I'm better," I said, which might have been true. My leg wasn't burning as much, and the pain hadn't come all the way back as the morphine wore off. I decided I would wait as long as I could before asking for any more. "Okay, men," Chief Kerr said, struggling to stand in the bow so he could see all of while he spoke. "I should have set this up last night, but we were all feeling pretty low from losing our shipmates." He paused and added, "From losing our friends." He paused again and ground his teeth as if it looked like a wave of pain passed over him from his burnt face. Then he continued, "I'll be designating all of you men for 2-hour watches throughout the day and night. Just because we're no longer on our ship doesn't mean there's no danger from U-boats or from a stray freighter that might come up on us and not know we're here. It's happened plenty of times before that the ship somebody thinks is coming to their rescue ends up doing just the opposite. And if you haven't noticed, we're being followed." Several guys jumped up to look at the stern. I swiveled around and pulled myself up to look too, and saw a half-dozen black fins in the water behind us. Sharks. The good news is that means there are other fish in the water, and we might luck into catching some, Chief said. "Meanwhile, if you're the praying kind, you'll want to be praying for rain. We'll open the tarps to catch as much as we can. It'll be salty, but not as salty as seawater. We can strain it through our shirts, and we'll use a couple of the buckets to hold it in. We can hold on without food for a couple of weeks. Can't go but a couple of days without water. We also need to take extra care of the weapons on hand and protect our ammunition. I want every weapon cleaned twice a day and ammo properly stored." Right away I could tell guys felt a little better. Once again, they had a job to do, whether it was keeping watch, praying for rain, or cleaning the weapons we had on board. Everybody seemed to sit up straighter, and the conversations broke out here and there as guys for the first time started talking about what had happened the day before with the U-boat, and about our friends who'd we'd lost. For the next couple of hours, sharks kept bumping the boat, and that gave us something to talk about too. Could a shark do serious damage to the lifeboat? Should we try to shoot them? Nobody seemed to have any clear answers, but that didn't stop everyone from discussing it for the next couple of hours. Strobe didn't talk, though. He'd started out doing everything he could to take care of me, to make sure I was comfortable, even to the point of giving me his rations if I'd let him. But now, as the day wore on, he grew quieter. I didn't have much energy to try to get him to talk, and I got quieter too, but in a different way than him. I was wounded in my leg. He seemed to be wounded in his heart. The sun had been a blessing when it first came up, thawing us out, drying us off, giving us hope that somebody might see us, and we might be rescued. But as the sun rose higher and the day got hotter, we were all soon parched. and counting down the hours until the next water ration, which wouldn't be until sundown. Chief Kerr ordered the cans of peaches opened that night, and we each got a couple of slices and a small sip of the peach juice. Nothing had ever tasted so good to me, to all of us. Judging by the slurping and smacking sounds the guys were making, the last ones got to stick their tongues in the cans and lick the sides. The rest of us just looked on with envy, wishing it was us. And that was just the second day. The days that followed got worse and worse. First, the cold, cold nights. The rough ocean, waves rocking us, salt water spraying us, guys trembling and moaning from the bone-deep chill. Then the heat of the climbing sun. It dried up the salt water, but sucked all the moisture out of our skin, which got sunburned and cracked. And then the next night, if the waves picked up again and water splashed over us, turned painful. So painful on some of the men that they started crying. Only after a few days, no tears came. None at all. And the sharks kept circling, still occasionally bumping the bottom of the lifeboat, their dorsal fins visible in the daytime, shadows at night. They stayed close, letting us know they were there, biding their time, patiently waiting. And that's the end of chapter 24. I'll see you back here tomorrow for chapter 25. I love you guys. Take it easy. Bye-bye.